At gold today, especially with the fundamental events that are coming up. The only thing I want you to understand here is the relationship between gold and then wars. If you've studied wars for long, you realize that there is one thing which is common. There was war, there is war, and there will always be war in the future. And as a modern investor, the moment you understand this concept, it becomes easy for you to understand why gold is always bullish long term. Yes, there are incidences where we may have gold becoming bearish, but overall and long term, gold is always bullish. And this is because there is a direct correlation between the occurrences of war and then the price of gold. This is why gold is always bullish because people go and then buy gold as a safe haven. Now, in the past, there has always been wars, especially if you study the Peloponnesian Wars, the Roman conquest, the Punic Wars, and so many other kinds of wars, that all nations were forged through blood and sweat. Then when you come into the modern one, the war has always been happening. As we talk now, there are different wars. What is happening in Gaza, Ukraine, and so many other parts of the world. And then in the future, there is a tendency for war to will happen. If you study the works of Ian M. Banks, he actually talks about intergalactic wars, meaning if humans become multiplanetary species, there is a possibility of wars also happening between different planets, intergalactic wars. So if you understand this as an investor, you realize that amidst the wars that are already happening, there is also another one which is cooking up. For example, if you study Taiwan and China, the relationship between Taiwan and China and what is brewing over there, because the Chinese have a foreign policy of annexing and then adding Taiwan to their part. And they were talking about three reasons why that could happen. They were like, number one, when they have tried all the peaceful means and then Taiwan doesn't accept to be a part of China, they will find a way. They will advance the war. And then the other one, they were like, if any political party in Taiwan, whether it is an opposition or one, ever declares themselves to be independent. And then number three, they had said, when any foreign country recognizes Taiwan as a sovereign state. So some of those three reasons, two of them have actually played out. We have one, and that is when China says when they have tried all the peaceful means and then they have exhausted them. So you will see, as if the Gaza incident and the Ukraine incident and so many others are not enough, one is already brewing up. So there will always be wars. And then there will be wars in the future, also intergalactic one. So the question becomes now, when was ever there a time where there was a break? I give you one good story from the First World War. What happened in the frontiers of the First World War, where when German soldiers and then the British guys unofficially ceased fire and then came into the no man's land, exchanged gifts, and played football. The story of the Christmas truce, one of the best stories ever. That was the only time where actually people took a break amid these wars. Remember, there have always been wars. There is war right now, and then there will always be wars. Seems like nobody has ever taken a break. The only time actually people took break was the Christmas true story, which happens in the First World War, which was actually between 1912 to 1921, around that time. So basically, what happens there is it was unofficial. It was a good time because for the first time, young men who didn't know each other stopped fighting for the sake of policymakers who knew themselves. Very beautiful story. So there is that always that correlation between gold and war. So let's look at gold today. Even if we may get a short-term sell for gold, the reason for gold becoming bullish is always the main thing. So if you just open gold chart on the yearly, if you look at gold on the yearly chart, you realize that gold has always been bullish. It has always been bullish long term. From all the way 90s is majorly bullish. We can have this temporary pullback, but gold has always been bullish. So once you have this, let's just switch to today because our focus is on these fundamental events that are coming up in the next 2, 3 hours. especially with the unemployment rate, and then the employment change. And then also we have the prelim and all of that. So this is gold on the 4-hourly time frame. I just want to break it down, and then we can see whether we would have possible trading opportunities, gold at all-time highs. Now, if you study this gold price from this year, do you think the trend has actually not changed, but there is an indication of a possibility? So let's just mark our high. This is our high. And then these are our lows that the market has actually failed to break. Market has failed to break below this low. But there's a difference between this new low and then this new high, and is this candle here, which will be exactly here. Okay. So right now, if you are a typical trend follower, you don't want to jump into trades until we study exactly what happens here. So what could happen here on a lower time frame if we can have a change of trend where the market changes from bullish to bearish by giving you patterns like double top, triple top, or inverted head and shoulder on the lower time frame, then we can have that possibility of break. Otherwise, if the market continues to break, then we could actually break above this and continue from this 4,000 here. So the best decider for today's is actually what will happen here. So you just want to wait and see what can actually happen here. But gold is still bullish. The only time in which it will be bearish is if we break this low to the downside and then continue. But right now, we just want to wait for more action around this area.